Good morning, Greene County. Woo! I had to bring the obligatory pom-poms. As you guessed, I am your April Fool's joke this morning. All right. Well, it is great to be with you. And it looks like the font didn't transfer, but that's okay. I thought we would have a conversation this morning. And Cindy is going to remind me to repeat the question or the suggestion as we go through this. I want to talk with you a little bit about change and teamwork and the fact that it is a new day, okay? How many of us woke up this morning and said, I'm sure glad it's yesterday? No. That is one of the things that we get is a new sunrise every day, and we get to determine our own destiny, and we get to decide where do we go from here as a team, okay? Now this may look like Bob discovered how to do presentations and how to Google things. This is a picture of all the roller coasters at Silver Dollar City, or at least 3 of them. And then some might think this is Deep Thoughts with Bob. But anyway, when it feels like you're on a roller coaster, hold on to your hat, because you may be. Lots of change going on all over the campus, but more importantly, hold on to your friends, because we really are all in this together, okay? Yes, I finished this at 2 o'clock and I just crammed all my thoughts into a PowerPoint presentation, but this is the setup for the conversation. One thing about, I know we come in here for these huddles and we talk about money, but this is more than that. This is change. Change happens, right? And we want to talk about that as we get ready to kind of examine where we are with Great Game and where we want to go from here, okay? Change happens, but culture can be our constant. That is maybe my takeaway. And as I was thinking about what I wanted to how I wanted to set this discussion up, I thought I would talk a little bit about teamwork. And this is for you, Cindy.
Thank you.
And we all know teamwork makes the
dream work.
And so I just changed it a little bit. It makes the dream actually work. Okay? Now, teamwork can be difficult. And I love this picture because it is actually a picture that reminds me of my oldest, who's now 30. It wasn't her school pictures that came back like this. We took her to a photographer, and she had a little princess hat on, and she got upset during the photography session, and so we have a great picture of her like this with her princess hat on. But people are like plants. It really is Deep Thoughts with. I told you I'm your April Fool's joke. Now let's examine that. What are some things that plants need to grow? Sunshine, water, nutrients, soil. So I kind of threw these on here. They need space too. And as we examine that, there are all kinds of plants. Again, this is, Bob can Google and make a presentation. I just kind of had fun until 2 o'clock when I said, forget it, I'm copying and pasting. You'll get to that in a minute. We need a supportive environment to thrive, right? Plants need a supportive environment to thrive. We grow toward positive conditions. I have a plant on my next to my kitchen sink, I have to turn that thing around every so often. It wants to grow toward the sunshine. We need care in order to flourish. And if we stick with it, we can bloom where we're planted. Okay? Need for a supportive environment. Just like plants, people need a safe, comfortable, and nurturing environment to grow and develop. Okay? And that looks kind of lush in there. That's why I picked that one. It's a little bit of a contrast from the previous picture, the dry and arid environment. We do grow toward positive conditions. Both people and plants tend to grow and flourish when exposed to positive influences and care. And we think of some examples of that, both with we'll get to the discussion here in a minute, but just be thinking of some examples of that with both people and plants. Plants require water. Somebody mentioned water and sunlight and nutrients, while people need love, support, and positive relationships to thrive. What happened here? Could be too much water. Could be too much nutrition. I didn't have the slides, but I gave this presentation at the County Commissioners Association, and I didn't quite do it this way because they wanted a session on working together, and I was like, how are we going to do this? Well, first of all, they had all the new commissioners from across the state stand up, and it was 1/3 of the people in the room. And I thought, wow. But, in some of the courthouses, people are suing each other, and it's just a mess. And some of them, I've mentioned when I was here before, a couple, 3 weeks ago, that it's not like this everywhere. We really strive to get along. We've tried to build a positive culture. But I shared with them, I know a little bit about plants as an amateur gardener, but one thing I know is you don't give them too much fertilizer, and we all know what that is. And also I was thinking the different types of fertilizer. Now, we had chicken manure at our amateur garden, and that stuff is just a little hot. It comes on strong, but you've got to let it sit and percolate. Now, rabbit manure, you can put that right on your plants, right on your garden. And we had chickens and rabbits, and until my wife did a for sale by wife posting on Facebook Marketplace, she was tired of thawing out the water when I was in Jeff City.
Bob, you've made it very clear that you really know your stuff.
That's good. Oh, goodness. I told you guys, April Fool's here. We have plants and people have individual differences. Each plant has its unique characteristics and need. And each person, I'm watching my time since we don't have the clock, has their own personality, their own strengths, and their own challenges. I don't know I'll pick anybody, any of us in this room has been through our whole life. And we all carry different things that make us who we are. And those things can be positive if we look to make them positive things for a team. And it really is a good thing we're not all the same. Does anybody know what these are? Yeah. The other thing that strikes me about plants and people is resilience. Plants and people can both adapt and overcome all kinds of challenges. We know that there are circumstances which make it easier, but sometimes that's just not possible. And we can still, I know the tree isn't blooming, but we can bloom where we're planted. Although our individual resilience quotient can vary, not every plant could probably make it there. That's why if you travel the world, you see different, flora and fauna in different areas of the world. And this is my attempt at creating a word: stick-to-itiveness. The ability to overcome the worst possible odds with time and determination. Now, that little tree, when it was a sprig, probably had no idea it was going to split that rock in two. Maybe it did, I don't know. So that brings me back to change and where we go from here. And before I start the discussion time, I'll just add, because I ran out of time to do slides. It was getting real late. But there are some things which I didn't put on there as far as other similarities and differences. If I can get to it here. Oops. So I mentioned resilience. I don't know if this is going to cooperate. We can also become embedded in our environment. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to talk about culture as we talk about the larger conversation of change and where we move forward. But we humans, like plants, we're creatures deeply embedded in our environment, even if we are mobile. So our village or our town, our home, our family, our culture, our social network, not the online one, but our support systems, constitute the daily environment in which we live. We also need energy to survive. Plants capture energy from the sun and can make their own food. And we also respond differently to heat or cold shocks. And both of those can produce change. And a lot of that, how we respond, is kind of coded in our DNA, kind of who we are. Maybe it's a result of everything from the challenges or the strengths and weaknesses that we have. But the reason I wanted to have that discussion is because you saw from a few of the pictures that there's a variety in the plant world. It's the same as people. And as we look at where we want to take the great game, okay, and maybe I should have put that on this one. Maybe I should have called that the great game of change. As we maintain that constant of our culture and we strengthen our culture as kind of the Greene County family, where does that take us? And I will tell you, it's not commission saying this is where we're going to go. We are a team, and we've been really careful to make sure that we listen to the wisdom of the crowd. So I want to do that this morning, but I want to talk about our huddles. What works, what doesn't work, what we think might be more effective. We've got some ideas. I know that the what is it called? The steering committee. Thank you. The steering committee is meeting on Thursday, and it would be great if we had some volunteers. I'll just throw that out there. I have some personal opinions, but they're just that. They're just my personal opinion, and I'll share them, but I don't want to overshadow where you all would like to see this go. Because the energy that the team can get, or we can get as individuals, can really come out of this this gathering that we have on a weekly basis. So I'm going to try to repeat the question. It is 8:27, so we have a few minutes. The question or suggestion, it's a conversation with, I think is how we posted this yesterday. What do we want to imagine our future huddles to look like, and how do we make that something that really energizes not only our team but also kind of strengthens our culture? Okay, so that's kind of the setup. And I'm not going to call on anybody, but if I get over here, is that going to mess up the video?
No.
Okay. So what works? Oh, I'm going backwards. What works, and where do we want to take this thing? Okay. Who's the first one that's going to just shout it out? Who's got ideas of what we've done in the past, maybe, that you really liked?
In the past, we've had opportunities to travel. And when we were doing the HVAC in this room and some other things, I really enjoyed. I know that the assessor's office hosted a huddle once where we showed off some of our renovations. I know that might be difficult to do in other buildings, but there are a lot of campus locations that I would like to see that are outside this building.
Okay. And I'm going to try to repeat everything so that we do have some folks who've logged in online. So the traveling huddles are positive, and I'm hearing that we learn a lot. They teach us something about different areas that we may not see. Is that accurate? Yes. Okay. How many would agree that the traveling huddles are something that you really liked, that you enjoyed? Yeah. Just, okay. What about, let's talk about other types of structured huddle gatherings like that. What are some other things that, what are some things that you walked out of the room and you said, wow, that was really good? Anybody think of anything? Because this is what we make it together. That's why I wanted to set it up with team. Okay, I guess we'll have to. Oh, I'm sorry.
Sometimes instead of being county-centric, when we bring in other individuals, entities with whom we partner in the community. So I was interesting to see how do we work together, collaborate, etc. What do they do?
Okay, so Alan was saying the not necessarily internal but external partners.
Yeah, bringing in Kim McCord.
Okay.
City, county work together. Where do we overlap? Where do we have some differences of opinion?
It is really good to do that because this is a huddle for our county internal operations, which these are open to the public. We post these. But the larger community, we had a terrific meeting yesterday with some folks from the city and parks, and it built on a meeting I had Friday with one of the members of council. I mean, when we look at things, when we look at teamwork through those eyes of the larger team of the community, the same principles apply, right? That's good. That's good. Somebody on this side has something. I just feel it. I told you I was your April Fool's joke. Anybody?
Well, I'm pretty new to the county.
Okay.
But one thing that I found interesting, like from the last huddle with Jeff, was just I don't know what I don't know.
That's good.
And so
that's good.
I think that it's like looking in just kind of like some basic financial things, like from a more like finance 101 level, to bring in some of our, so that it would be interesting to employees who are just started with the county or maybe don't have a finance background or a business background. Kind of,
so
even looking like, where do we generate our revenue? Where does that come from? Where do we get it? When does it come in? Where does it go?
Very good. So Amanda was saying, for those listening, as a new person, she said, I don't know what I don't know. I remember that spot. Even coming from someplace like the legislature, I got here and I thought, what was I doing for 16 years? I didn't know what the impact was. So we've all been in that spot. That's really kind of how Great Game started. learning the basics of just like what a spreadsheet looks like. What does, your cash flow look like? How is it calculated? Where does the revenue actually come from? So kind of educational basics. What I'm imagining with that, just personally, is like a refresher course, Great Game 101. How many in here, by the way, have been to the Great Game training? Okay. Yes. Sure.
Because that might be straight up.
Oh, I'm back. For those online, I know that we've got a couple in the commission office. So kind of getting back to the Great Game 101, what are the basics of, because a lot of us are not finance people. Most of us, we have a great finance team, and sometimes understanding what they're saying, for me, it's like I get deer in the headlights because they're really intelligent with the numbers. And I've even told Cindy this. I mean, she can tell me numbers all day long, but just I'm struggling to get to the bottom line, So understanding that, we call it financial literacy. That's a good one. That's a really good one. Somebody else. Yes.
A couple of publics ago, we had like an impromptu huddle. And people from different offices, representatives, they told just like a snapshot of what was going on today. And I found that very interesting.
So kind of a day in the life, sort of a snapshot of a bunch of different offices. So what I'm hearing is a combination of things. We still would like to have a combination of the financial literacy, some educational, some partners, just like the traveling stuff, and like I call it a day in the life, but a snapshot of what's going on today. How many of us, along those lines, how many of us understand, back to the plants analogy, the true day-to-day challenges and headaches of every department at the county?
I want to expand on that.
Okay.
I want to talk about, you talk about plants, some trees can talk to each other. And some trees say, that tree's not getting enough water, so I'm going to send him water through my roots. And they've learned how those ecosystems thrive. I would like to have possible huddles that expose and show off and how certain departments work in conjunction with other departments.
That's good.
We're the first domino on the assessment process, but then that goes to the clerk and how the levies are set, and then that goes to Alan's office. I think sometimes asking one office to do a huddle presentation might be a bit much because there might be a smaller link in the chain, but still an important link. But if we could maybe do some joint huddles and kind of talk about, what makes a bill a law kind of a thing.
So like a giant org chart, flow chart. Yeah. I love the ecosystem analogy. That's good. That's really good. So how he was saying how trees might talk to one another. Plants are different. I will tell you, I don't know what the headaches are in every area. I know when somebody tells me something, and I get calls all day long from citizens who think that I can fix anything at the county. And believe me, that is kind of a very, I try to make it a very polite educational process because I'm thinking, I want to help the person that I'm on the phone with, the person that I'm in front of, really understand the way we're structured. It's educational opportunity. So that kind of goes back to what you're saying on that broader. It's kind of what we did yesterday in our discussion a very positive discussion we had with our municipal partners. Another thing I'll say that I really enjoyed, and I'll put Justin on the spot, but when we had the games, often had games of, some of them were financial, but the different game shows that Justin has put together. The fun times. How many enjoy those kind of those more fun but still educational huddles? Yeah. Okay. All right. How are we doing on time? We have 5 minutes. So with all of that kind of thrown out here, what are some things that when we talk about what we like, what are some things where we might modify or change where we're going? And I know it's difficult to talk about change because nobody may want to throw it out there to say, well, what we're doing might not be the absolute best. But if we don't do that, we don't always bring it to the next level. We're looking at some changes that were suggested to us on some of our financial stuff, and we're really actually very excited to be able to present that soon, which will be some commission sponsored, I'll say educational. It will be some commission sponsored things that Budget is going to put together. It was their idea, and I'm actually really excited to be able to roll that out. When we talk about the huddles, though, and where we want to go, what are some things we could change to bring the huddles to the next level, to bring it up a notch? We've talked about what we like. Is there something we want to do more of or get back to?
When it comes to the huddles, Bob, and I've heard you say it, we really like the huddles to have a lot more participation. And the goal is, well, what kind of programming fosters that kind of participation? And while I sit here in the pews and you're directly asking for participation, it's somewhat of an environment that kind of stymies participation. Maybe there's an alternative location where there's, a room in a circle, or a room where, we really don't have this kind of setting.
It's funny that you say that because I actually was picturing being a youngster sitting in the pews and being told, "Don't talk." And we're kind of programmed to be the listeners, and this is the presenter. And the whole idea at the training I went to, they were shouting out numbers. I mean, it was like a game show on steroids. I thought, what is going on, right? So, and honestly, that's one of the things I shared with Cindy. That's one of the things I would like to get back to, is where there's more engagement. So maybe we could, that's really thinking outside the box. Maybe we could change. There is a subliminal message to the participants. Maybe we could change the way we're structured in that regard. The person up here is more of the guide, so to speak, or the secretary of the wisdom of the crowd. How does that grab you? Okay. Did I repeat that well enough? I'm trying to remember the folks online. Jeff was saying maybe restructuring to where we sit in a circle or something like that, because we do kind of tend to think about the environment influencing what our communication might be. We have 1 minute left, and I don't want to keep us. I'm grateful, very grateful for what you all do. I personally want to learn more about your headaches and challenges that you deal with. I know my colleagues do. Rusty is here, and John apologizes because one of his kids had a track meet, and he had promised her that he'd be there this morning. So the commission is committed to being a support. I will say this in wrapping up, is there anybody have a burning suggestion? Yes.
One thing that we haven't talked about are games.
Games.
Yeah, we used to have a little friendly competition between who did better, or projecting stuff like that. I always thought that was fun.
I agree. There's got to be some. So you mean like mini games, like a mini huddle in addition to like the game shows that we were talking about.
Yeah, well, we
Are
had
you
a
talking about the
year-long
project,
process,
you're
the
talking
projected
about
numbers
projections
who
and
did
targeting,
better.
yeah.
Very
That was
good.
a game that was inclusive instead of a mini game just in our little department.
Okay. Okay.
I think that needs to happen, but I feel like we, as a group, have not been in the game for quite some time.
Very good. Very good. Along those lines, and this wasn't really a huddle thing, last year around this time, commission came and we didn't make it a game long term, but we had this goal, and that was let's all be more healthy and reduce our insurance costs. And we came in, and y'all remember what happened there. We will do another huddle on this, but I'm really pleased with what's still happening there. So maybe we could even incorporate that into like a longer type game, something like that, which really impacts our bottom line. Because we budgeted 6% for health insurance, and we're getting a 3% increase. That's really good. We're the best in the NPR pool. We're the best in the pool, and we've even volunteered to go and talk to the other members in the pool to say this is how we did it. So we'll do that for another huddle, but I think that's great, is some of the mini games, because it keeps us on our toes through the week, keeps us focused. Anything else? Burning suggestion before I give you the wrap-up deal? All right. Again, I want to say thank you. We are so honored to serve you and be your support. I've shared with folks for years my view of leadership, and this is the way I even think about it in working with my colleagues. Leadership, when I taught it down the street, is like an inverted triangle. We can think, well, the people at the top, yada, yada, yada. The people, the big wigs at the top of the pyramid. But real leadership is an inverted triangle. We are here to support the people at the top. The more you advance in leadership, you're actually going down the triangle. You have more people to support. I support my colleagues. It has to be my mindset every day. That keeps us out of conflict. It keeps us focused on understanding one another. And the commission is focused on serving the office holders, the department heads, not lording over, but serving. And we have that mindset with all of you. And so, thank you for serving all of our citizens. Have a great day.